There's a technique Eckhart Tolle taught only once in a private lecture to fewer than 50 people and never spoke of again publicly. Those who were there changed forever. Those who weren't continued battling their egos for years afterward. I know you're here because something inside you is screaming for freedom. Something that can no longer bear this constant internal war. That voice in your head that never stops, never rests, never leaves you alone. But what I'm about to share isn't for everyone. Out of every 1,000 people who discover this technique, only one fully implements it. The others give up halfway through. Because what this technique reveals about yourself is unsettling. Are you ready to see who you really are when you take off all the masks? Then take a deep breath. Because in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the only way to destroy your ego in 90 seconds. Yes, 90 seconds. I'm not exaggerating. And by the end of this journey, you'll understand why Eckhart Tolle never taught this publicly again. The story begins in 2003, Vancouver, Canada. Eckhart had just finished his official lecture when a woman approached him. She was crying uncontrollably. He looked into her eyes and said something that shifted the entire energy of the room. "Do you want me to show you how to end your suffering right now?" She nodded. What happened in the next 90 seconds left everyone in complete silence. She stopped crying, not gradually, instantaneously. Her face transformed, as if a completely different person had taken her place. And most impressively, she started to laugh, a deep, genuine, liberating laugh. "My God," she whispered, "how is this possible? How can it be so simple?" Everyone wanted to know what had happened. But Eckhart simply smiled and said, "Some things can only be conveyed when a person is truly ready." And he left the room. 3 people managed to follow him. They begged him to explain the technique. Reluctantly, he agreed to a private session, just for them. What he taught in that session was never recorded, never written down, never officially documented. But I gained access to the notes of one of those 3 people. And what you're about to discover will blow your mind. The technique is based on a principle Eckhart discovered while studying the oldest Zen masters, a principle so powerful that they kept it secret for centuries. They called it the unseen key, because it's as if there's a secret lock inside your mind, a lock that keeps your true self imprisoned in a jail of thoughts, fears, and anxieties. And when you find this key, click, the door opens, the ego dies, and you are reborn. But here's the problem. Finding this lock isn't easy. It's hidden behind layers and layers of mental conditioning. Most people spend their entire lives searching and never find it. Others find it, but don't have the courage to turn the key. Because turning that key means destroying everything you think you are. Your name, your story, your accomplishments, your traumas, your fears, your hopes. Everything turns to dust. And from the dust, something completely new is born. Are you feeling a knot in your stomach right now? That feeling that maybe you shouldn't keep listening. That's your ego trying to protect you. It knows it's about to die. But stay with me, because on the other side of this death, there's a freedom you can't even imagine is possible. Let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus was a successful executive. He had everything society says you should have: a mansion, a luxury car, an enviable bank account. But inside, he was dying. He woke up every day with an inexplicable sense of emptiness, as if he were an actor playing his own life. He discovered Eckhart Tolle through a friend. He read all the books. He took all the online courses, but nothing changed. The ego remained strong, resistant, unchanged, until Marcus discovered this technique. In 90 seconds, his entire life collapsed and rebuilt itself. He told me this personally 3 years later. It was as if I had lived 40 years dreaming. And suddenly, I woke up. For the first time in my life, I truly woke up. Marcus quit his job that same day, donated 90% of his possessions, moved to a small town in the country. Today, he works as a gardener, and he's never been happier. People think I've gone crazy, he laughed when we talked. They don't understand that for the first time in my life, I'm sane. But Marcus's story isn't unique. Sarah was a mother of 3 who was on anxiety medication. She applied the technique and threw all her pills in the trash. She never needed another pill again. Robert was a businessman who had daily panic attacks. After the technique, he never felt anxiety again. Carla was a lawyer who couldn't stop working. She was always stressed, always irritated, always rushing. The technique transformed her into a completely different person. They all told me the same thing. It's impossible to explain what happens. You only know when you go through it. And here's what strikes me the most. None of them had to fight their ego. It wasn't a battle. It was a dissolution, like sugar dissolving in water. Gentle, natural, irreversible. But why did Eckhart never teach this technique publicly again? The answer will shock you. Because he realized that most people aren't ready for the truth, aren't ready to discover that everything they think they are is an illusion, aren't ready to feel the absolute emptiness that comes before freedom, aren't ready for the death of the self they know. In 2005, Eckhart did a second private session, this time with 12 people. 3 of them had the same instant transformation as in previous cases. 5 left the room in the middle of the session. They couldn't handle it. And 4 experienced what psychologists call a severe existential crisis. 1 of them ended up in the hospital. It was at that moment that Eckhart decided this technique is too dangerous to be taught en masse. He kept it as a secret until today. But today, you're going to discover that secret. Because something tells me you're not like most people. Something tells me you're truly ready. You feel it too, don't you? That strange certainty that your time has come. Then let's go. The technique is called instantaneous dissolution of the observer. It seems complicated, but it's the simplest thing in the world. So simple, your mind will try to complicate it. So powerful, your ego will resist. So true, it will change everything. Pay attention now. Really pay attention. Because I'm going to explain exactly how it works. And then, I'm going to guide you through the process. The secret lies in a question. A single question that dissolves every illusion of separation. A question that reveals who you truly are behind all the thoughts. A question that cuts through decades of conditioning in seconds. But before I reveal that question, I need to warn you about something important. Once you know the answer, there's no going back. You can't unlearn what you're going to discover. You can't go back to being who you were before. It's like discovering that the world is round after believing your whole life that it was flat. Impossible to return to previous ignorance. That's why I'm giving you this chance to stop. To close this video now. To continue living in the comfortable illusion that you are your thoughts. No one will judge you for it. Most people make that choice. The safe choice. The familiar choice. But if you've stayed this far, it's because you know you can no longer live lying to yourself. You can no longer pretend that everything is okay when it's not. You can no longer carry that invisible weight that has been with you for so long. So take a deep breath once more. Feel the air entering your lungs. Feel your heart beating. Feel life pulsating through your body. Because in the next few minutes, you're going to discover that you are neither the air, nor the heart, nor the body. You are something far vaster, far deeper, far more free. The question that will dissolve your ego is this: who is observing the thoughts? Pause for a moment and reflect. At this very moment, you have thoughts passing through your mind. Maybe you're thinking, what a strange question. Or, will this really work? Or, I don't understand anything. It doesn't matter what thought you're having. The important thing is, you are observing these thoughts. You are not the thoughts. You are observing the thoughts. If you were the thoughts, who would be observing them? And here's where the magic happens. When you ask yourself, who is observing the thoughts? Your mind falls silent because it can't answer. It can think about the question, but it can't answer it. Because whoever observes the thoughts is beyond the thoughts. It's beyond the mind. It's beyond the ego. And in that moment of silence, something extraordinary happens. You realize that there's always been a distance between you and your thoughts. A gap, an empty space. And this empty space is who you truly are. Not the content of the mind. Not the stories you tell about yourself. Not the emotions that come and go. But the pure consciousness that observes all of this. The immutable presence that has always been there. Calm, silent, free. And when you recognize this presence, the ego has nowhere else to stand. Because the ego is made of thoughts. And you've just discovered that you are not your thoughts. The ego is made of stories about the past and the future. And you've just discovered that there is only the now. The ego is made of identification with social roles. And you've just discovered that you are the consciousness that observes all the roles. In 90 seconds, the entire mental structure that held you captive collapses. Like a house of cards. And what remains? Absolute freedom, unspeakable peace, unconditional love. You, yourself. Marcus described it like this. It was as if I had spent 40 years carrying a 100-pound backpack, and suddenly I realized I could take it off, that it had never really been attached to me. Sarah said, all the anxiety I felt was resistance to the present moment. When I discovered that I am the present moment, the resistance disappeared. And Robert, I spent the whole day running away from myself. When I discovered who I really am, I had nothing left to run from. But here's something I need to tell you. This technique has a side effect, an effect that Eckhart only discovered later. People who go through the instantaneous dissolution of the ego completely change their lives, not because they decide to change, but because they can no longer live from their previous identification. It's impossible to continue being who you are not after discovering who you truly are. That's why some quit their jobs, others end toxic relationships, Many abandon addictions instantaneously. Some move to a different city. Others spend months in spiritual retreat. The transformation is inevitable, and it's not always comfortable for those around you. Your family may not understand. Your friends may think you've become strange. Your coworkers may see you as different, because you will be different, completely different. But for the first time in your life, you will be authentically you, without masks, without pretensions, without fear. And this authenticity is irresistible. People will be drawn to your peace, to your presence, to your freedom. Some will want what you have. Others will feel envy. Many won't understand, and that's okay, because you'll no longer need anyone's approval. You will finally approve of yourself, accept yourself, love yourself, unconditionally. But I'm telling you this so you know what you're getting into, so you're not caught by surprise, so you understand that this technique isn't just about feeling better, it's about being reborn. And every rebirth implies a death, the death of who you thought you were. Do you still want to continue? Do you feel ready for this journey? Then let's practice the technique now. But first, let me explain exactly how to do it. The process has 3 steps. First step, you will observe your thoughts for 30 seconds without judging them. Second step, you will ask yourself, who is observing these thoughts? And wait in silence for 30 seconds. Third step, you will remain in this pure consciousness that is revealed for another 30 seconds. 90 seconds in total. But pay attention. Don't try to force anything. Don't try to stop the thoughts. Don't try to create a special experience. Just observe, with curiosity, with lightness, as if it were the first time you are realizing that you have thoughts. And when you ask the question, who is observing these thoughts? Don't look for a mental answer. Look for an experiential answer. Feel who you are beneath the thoughts. Acknowledge that silent presence, always there. And then, simply be that presence. Do nothing. Try nothing. Just be. Ready? Then find a comfortable position. Close your eyes if you wish, and let's begin. The first stage begins now. Observe your thoughts for the next 30 seconds. Just observe. No judgment, no resistance. Let them come and go freely. Notice what kind of thoughts arise. Perhaps thoughts about this technique. Perhaps thoughts about your life. Perhaps random thoughts. It doesn't matter. Just observe, as if you were a scientist studying your own mind, with detachment, with objectivity. Keep observing. Notice how thoughts appear from nowhere, remain for a while, and disappear into nothingness. They come and go like clouds in the sky. You are the sky. The thoughts are the clouds. Continue observing until I give the next command. Now, second stage. Ask yourself, who is observing these thoughts? And remain silent, awaiting the answer. Not a mental answer, but an experiential answer. Who or what within you is observing the thoughts? Seek within yourself this observing presence, this awareness that is always there. Calm, silent, unchanging. Feel it directly. Don't think about it, be it. Recognize that you are this presence, not your thoughts, not your emotions, not your body, but the awareness that observes all of this. Continue feeling this presence. Third stage. Now simply remain as this pure consciousness. this presence, this peace. Do nothing. Just be. Feel the freedom of not having to be anyone, of not having to do anything, of not having to prove anything, just to exist, as pure consciousness, as love, as peace. Remain like this for the next 30 seconds. Feel that there's no separation between you and the present moment. You are the present moment. There is no past here. There is no future here. Only the eternity of now. And you are the now. Continue. Now open your eyes slowly and observe how you feel. Different, isn't it? As if something has fundamentally changed. Because it has. You have just experienced who you truly are behind all the identities, behind all the roles, behind all the stories. And this experience will never leave you. Your mind may return to its normal functioning. Thoughts may return. Worries may reappear. But now you know that something exists beyond all of that. A deeper dimension, an inner refuge, a source of peace that no one can take from you. And whenever you want, you can return there with that same question. Who is observing the thoughts? It is your personal key to freedom, your escape from the mental prison, your way back home to who you truly are. But remember what I said, this is only the first part of the journey. The technique we just did temporarily dissolves the ego. For permanent dissolution, there is a second level, a level that very few people know, because it is even deeper, even more transformative, and even more dangerous for those who are not prepared. Eckhart Tolle taught this second level only once, to 3 people, and never spoke of it again. To this day, only 7 people in the world know this advanced technique, and it is devastating, in the best sense of the word. If the first technique dissolves the ego for a few minutes or hours, the second dissolves the ego forever. No turning back, no exceptions. It's like burning the bridge that connects you to illusion. You literally can no longer identify with thoughts, emotions, or personal stories. You live in a permanent state of presence, of peace, of freedom, but also of total responsibility. Because when you awaken completely, you can no longer blame anyone for anything. You can no longer play the victim. You can no longer escape the truth. You have to live authentically, and that scares a lot of people. That's why Eckhart Tolle kept this second level an absolute secret. But something tells me you're ready to know it. Something tells me you don't just want a temporary experience of freedom. You want total freedom, permanent, irreversible. If that's what you want, we'll meet in the second part, where I will reveal the technique that Eckhart Tolle never taught again. The technique that only 7 people in the world know. The technique that will destroy your ego forever and liberate you once and for all. But be prepared, because after that, there's no going back. You will become who you always were, but never had the courage to be. Welcome to Part 2, Forbidden Territory, the place where only the truly brave dare to enter. If you've come this far, it's because the first technique worked. You tasted freedom, the peace of not being your thoughts, the lightness of existing without illusions. But now you want more, don't you? You want this feeling to be permanent. You want to never return to the old mental prison. You want total freedom, forever. So get ready, because what I'm about to reveal goes beyond anything you've ever heard about spiritual awakening. The second level technique wasn't discovered by Eckhart Tolle. It was rediscovered by him 1,200 years ago in a monastery in Tibet by a monk named Tenzin. And for 12 centuries, only the most advanced masters had access to it. It was considered so dangerous that there was a blood oath. Whoever learned it swore never to teach it to more than 3 people in their entire life, and only if those people demonstrated total preparedness. Eckhart Tolle discovered this technique in 1998 through an ancient manuscript that came into his hands. Mysteriously, he never explained exactly how he gained access to the manuscript, but people close to him know it was through a Tibetan monk, a monk who appeared in his life out of nowhere, taught the technique, and disappeared. Eckhart Tolle tried to find him afterward, never succeeded, as if the monk had never existed. But the technique was real, more real than anything he had ever experienced. And when Eckhart Tolle tested it on himself, his life changed instantly, forever. But he realized the destructive power of this information, because it doesn't just destroy the ego, it destroys all illusions, all identifications, all attachments, all at once. It's like detonating a nuclear bomb in the mental structure, leaving only pure consciousness, vast, infinite, free. But the process of getting there can be devastating for the unprepared. That's why Eckhart chose to test it on himself first, for 5 years, to ensure it was safe. And only in 2003 did he teach it to the first 3 people, with extraordinary results. The first person was a clinical psychologist. She had spent 20 years studying the human mind, held 3 postgraduate degrees, thought she understood how the psyche worked, until she applied this technique. In 40 seconds, she realized that everything she had learned about psychology was superficial, because she was only studying the contents of the mind. She had never perceived the space in which those contents appear, the consciousness behind all mental phenomena. And when she recognized this consciousness, she stopped being a psychologist. She became a mystic, overnight. The second person was a businessman, owner of a technology company. He had built an empire, worked 16 hours a day, lived for material success. The technique transformed him in 15 seconds. He realized he had spent 40 years chasing fantasies, that success, money, recognition were merely mental concepts, distractions from the only thing that truly matters: being, simply being. He sold his company the next day, donated the money to charity, and went to live in a cabin in the woods, where he remains to this day, in silence, at peace, in perpetual ecstasy. The third person was a mother, 3 young children, a marriage in crisis, severe depression, had been on antidepressants for 10 years. Nothing worked. The technique cured her instantly, not just from depression, from all identification with suffering. She realized that suffering was just a mental story, an interpretation of facts, not the facts themselves. And when she stopped believing the story, the suffering disappeared forever. Her marriage transformed. Her relationship with her children blossomed. Her mental health became unshakable. But here's what most impressed Eckhart. The 3 never sought spiritual help again, never went to lectures again, never bought self-help books again, never meditated again, because they didn't need to. They had found what they were looking for: definitively, permanently, totally. And this worried Eckhart, because he realized that this technique ended spiritual seeking. Literally, people stopped searching because they found, and a whole industry depended on people who search eternally without ever finding. For obvious reasons, Eckhart decided to keep the technique a secret until today. But you are not just anyone. You've come this far, passed the first test, applied the first technique, felt on your skin what is possible, and yet you want more. This means you are truly ready. Ready for the complete truth, for total freedom, for the end of all seeking. The second-level technique has a name. Tibetan monks call it instantaneous Mahamudra, which means the great seal of ultimate reality. But Eckhart simplified it. He calls it direct recognition because that's exactly what happens. You directly recognize who you are, without intermediaries, without processes, without time, instantly. And once you recognize, you never forget. It's like recognizing your own face in the mirror. Impossible to undo. The technique is based on a revolutionary discovery that goes against everything you've learned about spirituality. The discovery is this: you are already enlightened. You always have been. You never cease to be. The problem is not that you need to become enlightened. The problem is that you believe you are not. And this belief is the only thing that separates you from enlightenment. Remove the belief, and enlightenment appears instantly, like the sun that has always been there but was covered by clouds. The clouds dissipate, and the sun shines, not because it became the sun, but because it always was the sun. And the clouds were temporary, illusory, false. You are the enlightenment, disguised as an ordinary person, hidden behind thoughts and emotions, masked by personal stories. But beneath all the masks lies the truth, pure, radiant, free. And the second-level technique removes all the masks at once, like a lightning bolt that pierces all layers of clouds, revealing the infinite sky that has always been there. But pay attention. This technique is not meditation. It's not visualization. It's not concentration. It's not relaxation. It is pure recognition, direct, immediate. You will recognize something you always knew, but pretended not to know. Something so obvious that it went unnoticed. So simple that it seemed impossible. So close that it seemed distant. Ready to discover? The second-level technique consists of a single instruction. An instruction so simple that your mind will reject it. Because the mind loves complications, loves long processes, loves the feeling of being working towards something. But the truth doesn't need work. It only needs recognition. The instruction is this: stop pretending you don't know who you are. That's right. Stop pretending you don't know who you are, because you know. You always have known. Since you were born. Since before you were born. You know exactly who you are behind all the roles, behind all the stories, behind all the thoughts and emotions. You are the consciousness that observes all this. And you always knew this, but you pretended you didn't know, to be able to play the human game, to be able to experience limitation, to be able to experience separation, to be able to experience suffering. But the game is over. You're tired of pretending. It's time to stop the act and be who you really are. Without pretense, without disguise, without masks, right now. Recognize, you are not your name. You are not your age. You are not your profession. You are not your accomplishments. You are not your traumas. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not even your body. You are the consciousness that witnesses all this. The presence that is always here, calm, silent, unshakable. And this presence is infinite, has no beginning nor end, was not born with the body, will not die with the body. It is eternal. It is universal. It is you, the real you, always free, always whole, always perfect. Stop pretending you don't know this. Acknowledge it now, directly, without a doubt, without question. You are this. Always have been this. Never been anything but this. And when you stop pretending, the game of limitation ends. The game of suffering ends. The game of seeking ends. And only truth remains. Pure, simple, obvious. You are infinite consciousness, temporarily expressing itself through a human body, but never limited to the body, never limited by circumstances, never limited by anything. Free, forever, unconditionally. And now that you've acknowledged it, you can no longer pretend you don't know. The mask has fallen. The game is over. The search is finished. You have found what has always been yours, your true nature, your essence, your being. Welcome to who you always were, but never had the courage to fully acknowledge. Now you know why this technique is so dangerous, because it shatters all illusions at once. It leaves nothing behind, no refuge for the ego, nowhere to hide. It's the raw, unvarnished truth. No softening, no gradations, no intermediate processes. Either you recognize who you are, or you continue pretending. There's no middle ground. And once you recognize, your entire life reorganizes itself automatically, because you can no longer live inauthentically. You can no longer maintain relationships based on falsehood. You can no longer do work that is meaningless. You can no longer pretend to be someone you're not. Your authenticity becomes inevitable. Your freedom becomes non-negotiable. Your peace becomes your natural state. And this transforms everything. Your relationships become more true. Your work becomes an expression of love. Your life becomes a work of art. Because you are living from truth, not from fear, not from the need for approval, not from identification with roles, but from your essential being, which is love, which is peace, which is freedom. And this is the technique that Eckhart kept secret for 20 years, because it is too powerful to be taught casually. It transforms everything, forever, irreversibly. But you were ready. That's why you came this far. That's why you heard this revelation. That's why you recognized the truth when it was presented. Because something within you always knew, always waited for this moment. The moment of ultimate recognition, of total freedom, of the end of all seeking. And now you know. There's nothing more to learn. There's nothing more to achieve. There's nothing more to become. You already are everything you ever wanted to be. Always have been. You just needed to stop pretending you didn't know. And now, you have stopped. The act is over. The mask has fallen. The truth has been revealed. You are free, forever, unconditionally, completely. And this freedom no one can take from you, because it is who you are, not something you have, not something you achieved, but something you are, in your deepest essence, in your truest nature, in your most authentic being. You are freedom expressing itself as a human being. You are love experiencing itself through a body. You are infinite consciousness playing at being finite. But the game is over. It's time to go home, to who you always were. Before all the stories, before all the identifications, before all the masks, you, pure, simple, free. And now that you know, live this truth, not as a mental concept, but as a direct experience. Constant, uninterrupted, natural. Be who you are, without apology, without fear, without limitations, because you have discovered the universe's greatest secret. The secret Eckhart guarded for 20 years. The secret Tibetan monks protected for 12 centuries. The secret only 7 people in the world knew until today. And now you are the 8th. Use this knowledge wisely. Live this truth courageously. Be this freedom without reservation. Because this is your nature. Always has been. Always will be. For all eternity. You are free. And always have been. You just needed to remember.